Mr. Kamath, hi, this is Nayantara Rai. Thank you so much for your time and being part of the Times Network India Economic Conclave. Over the last 1.5 days, I think it has been well established that this decade belongs to India. I think we can safely next year have a topic how this century can belong to India. But Mr. Kamath, none of this is going to be possible unless we have a very strong financial services system. You're a pioneer of that. Bill Gates has famously said, we need banking, but not banks. I think never before has that been proved true, especially since 2020, when the unbanked have started banking the explosion of fintech, which India is pioneering. I'd love to get your thoughts on this.
I think, thank you, Anantara. You actually put everything in context. I think the next decade is going to be what I would probably characterize as driven by 5 Ds: demographic, democratic, dematerialized, digital, and disruptive. Demographic, we all know. Democratic, in the context that everything is universal today. Connectivity is universal, it's affordable. So there's a great democratization process that's happened. Dematerialized, I think, as in a single iPhone doing 10 different jobs, any device in your hand doing 10 different jobs, working from home, Uber, Airbnb, and so on and so forth. Everything is getting dematerialized, and digital and disruptive, I think, are self-explanatory. If this is so, no business can be away from these 5 influences. And to me, banking and financial services is no different. So we will be in a banking world which is almost entirely different from where we are today for the next 10 years. But what drives banking? One is there enough to do? Banker dharma, we say, is lending. Is there enough to lend? I think that is going to be there. The second part of a banker's life is also the karma in terms of how does he do it? And I think that's where, unless you internalize the challenges that you articulated, the context that you put in, that it's going to be a digital world, I think we will see a very quick evolution of this space in the next 10 years.
In fact, Mr. Kamath, we did have the RBI governor, Mr. Shaktikanta Das, at the inaugural of the India Economic Conclave, where he said he sees 4 kinds of banking landscapes emerging, where the last one, digital banking, will play a massive, massive role, something that we've seen in 2020 as well. Now you have non-traditional banks that are lending. From that front, what is the future of banking when we can log on to our smartphones, get small personal loans, and we know the kind of due diligence that is not being carried out?
Let me put it in context, Nanda. It's not just banking. The whole financial services space, I think, is set for disruption. Not necessarily in a negative way. It can be also in a positive way. We were set for disruption 20 years back when the first wave of technology came to India. I think we are set for disruption in the same context today. And that is probably going to be good because it universalizes the whole process of financial services. You necessarily are not tied to a bank branch or a broker's branch or an insurance company's branch. You are the branch physically, given your ability to connect. Now, what that does is disrupts cost dramatically. Let's take one simple example, that is microcredit. We used to say that the intermediation cost in microcredit was between 8 and 10%, going back 10, 15 years. With the universalization of the digital economy, I think this cost is now a fraction of a percent. So basically, every intending borrower in India can be reached and can provide a service to the customer. So I think it's going to be a very exciting process. However, there are some prerequisites here. The key prerequisite is going to be, are you, as a provider of technology, led financial services, going to look at yourself as a banker or as a technology player? Because your competitor, the fintech firm, comes from the other end. They look at themselves as technology players who are in the banking business. The question is, how do you, as a banker, look at yourself? I would dare say that probably a reinvention of the mindset is also required here for bankers. They would need to really re-engineer themselves to say that primarily I will need to be on top of technology at all points in time. Not only I will need to be on top of technology, I will need to continuously reinvent myself and my firm to provide value to my customer. I think this is going to be the big challenge in the next 10 years. And the people who master this will be the leaders who will provide great value to the country.
So you're saying the banks will certainly going to need a mindset change. Let's see if your peers are ready for that challenge. But Mr. Kamath, it has been well documented and something the RBI is also working on recoveries. We have a fintech explosion. There have been some horrific stories on how money is being recovered from borrowers. You're a veteran. What are your views on this? How should it be done so that it's a win-win situation?
I think it's certainly a win-win situation. I think technology makes it very difficult for anybody to hide. That is after the event. But before the event, even in the process of approving financial assistance, you can now track the antecedents of your borrower in real time. And I think India has kept pace with what is happening elsewhere. And it's not only traditional, what I call underwriting tools that could be used. There are many more underwriting tools which are in vogue today, from your ability to pay your electricity bill down to whether you are attending office in time, which can be determinants of what sort of a credit you would be. And I'm not talking or taking this out of my hat. These tools are being used today to determine the quality of a borrower, to where you are in real time, because your device is connected all the time. So you cannot hide and not meet your obligations. And thereafter, in case you are a defaulter, the consequences also can follow up pretty quickly. So a sea change from just maybe 2 or 3 years back to today, making it much more easier and more comfortable to lend and for your client to repay.
Okay, now we're talking about the decade, a decade which belongs to India, where we must reform, perform, and transform. I've got a small glimpse from you on where you think it's headed. But Mr. Kamath, tell me something. Exactly 10 years from now, if I were to ask you, what would Indian banks be like? What would they look like? How would we interact with them? What is the future looking like 10 years from now?
You will be your own bank. You will be your own insurance company. You will be your own broker, and you will be your own asset management company. By that, I mean at the back end, there will be processes which run all these things. But as far as you are concerned, basically you are dealing with this whole equation in what I would call a dematerialized state. In a state where you can, you can do your business 24/7. So it's going to be something we did not imagine. We have not imagined as of today. As we did not imagine where we would get to banking today, say 10 years back. Same goes the previous 10 years. So, but at this point in time, in the next 10 years, the disruption is not going to be over 10 years. I think the disruption will happen over a period of 3 to 5 years. The good thing is, I think we have a very clear, the Reserve Bank of India, I think, has very clearly articulated what they feel is going to happen. My own assessment is the Reserve Bank is ahead of the curve. And that's a very nice spot to be in, that your regulator is ahead of the curve. Otherwise, you could have the sort of problems that some other countries are now facing, where enterprises ran well ahead of regulation and now have to be reined back. In our case, the regulator is ahead of the curve, and I think that makes it that much more comfortable. Again, I want to just touch on growth, because our theme is, our next decadal growth. In that context, again, I paraphrase what has been said by our Honorable Prime Minister, the next 25 years is enough to do for us. If that is so, I think growth is not going to be a problem, and the financial services industry will stand by. There is one difference. We talked about digital for the financial services industry, but you also have a growth driver, which is digital. And by that, I mean what one is loosely termed as a digital super cycle. So banks will not only be catering to traditional businesses, to infrastructure and the retail market, which has been the traditional, I would say, marketplace. But they will also need to be partners in the new digital super cycle that I think we're just getting on to as a nation.
And with that, Mr. Kamath, I would like to thank you for joining us live on this edition of the India Economic Conclave. That's the veteran banker for you, ladies and gentlemen, giving you an insider's view on what the future of banking is.
Thank you, Nayantara. Pleasure.
Mr. Kamath, thank you, Nayantara. Now, as you may